What if you didn't rob a bank, but tricked the government into printing the money for you? This is the story of the man who forged reality and stole a country. It is December 5th, 1925. Deep inside the heavily guarded, subterranean vault of a bank in Portugal, a senior bank inspector under the harsh glare of a brass desk lamp. He is sweating through his tailored wool suit. The entire Portuguese economy is currently dwindling on the absolute brink of total, irreversible collapse. And the pieces of paper sitting in front of him are the reason why. So Inspector Wright looks at the watermarks. They are perfect. He checks the intricate engraved ink. The lattice work is flawless. He puts the magnifying glass down. He is completely terrified. Because the notes are not counterfeit. They are 100% genuine. The ink, the paper, the watermarks, they are all officially, legally, undeniably real. But they do not belong to the Bank of Portugal. They belong to Alves dos Reis.
You have been taught that if you want to acquire great power, you have two options. Option 1, you force your way in with a show of power, a swift escape plan, and sheer determination. You risk a dangerous confrontation with the Guardians.
Option 2, you hide in a damp studio with an antique easel. You carefully replicate a famous artworks, living in constant fear that a sharp-eyed critic will notice the pigment is slightly too vibrant.
But Alves dos Reis realized that both of those methods are for amateurs. Both require you to fight against the system. Why risk your life robbing a bank or forging bills? Instead, Dos Reis asked a terrifying, brilliant question. What if you just tricked the government's official printer into printing the money for you? What if you used the system's rules against it? This is the unbelievable true story of the greatest financial con artist in human history. A man who didn't forge money like a massive rerun fluides. He forged like reality, executing a scheme so psychologically flawless that it allowed him to print billions, buy out his own country's economy, and trigger a financial crisis so severe it led to a 40-year fascist military dictator. And the most terrifying part, he did it all without breaking a single physical lock. He never fired a gun. He just understood human psychology better than the people who ran the world. To fully understand how a 28-year-old kid pulled off the heist of the century, you have to understand the bleeding, chaotic country that birthed him. It is the early 1920s. Portugal is tearing itself apart. World War I has bankrupted the nation. The government prints money worthless reckless, hyperlong and touted toward the ceiling. Hyperinflation takes hold. Citizens lose their life savings. In the middle of this chaos is Arthur Virgilio Alves dos Reis. He is brilliant, charismatic, and intensely ambitious. But he has a problem. He is broke and desperate to move to the Portuguese colony of Angola, where fortunes are being made in diamonds and railways. But to get a high-paying, respected job in his country, you need a prestigious university degree. Reis doesn't have the time or the money to earn one. Therefore, he decides to simply invent one. He doesn't just create a generic piece of paper. He curates an aesthetic experience. He crafts an incredibly elaborate, highly detailed certificate for a completely fantastical society. He names the Polytechnic School of Engineering at Oxford University. He buys expensive parchment, forges signatures, and presses an elaborate red wax seal onto the bottom. The entire institution is completely made up. It does not exist on any map. But when he arrives in the sweltering heat of Angola and hands the diploma to the colonial officials, they don't check it. They don't cable Oxford. They don't ask for transcripts. They look at the heavy wax seal, the expensive parchment, and his absolute confidence.
They assume the document is real because the man holding it acts like it's real. They immediately give him a high-paying, prestigious job as a government engineer for the state railroads.
In that exact moment, the NT has an epiphany. It is a profound psychological, it's a blinding realization that will eventually destroy the entire Portuguese economy. He realizes that the people in power don't verify the truth. They verify the appearance of the truth. If you have the right stamp, the right signature, and absolute authority, people will simply assume you are telling the truth. Fast forward to 1924. His ambition catches up with him. A fraudulent check-kiting scheme in Angola fails. He is arrested and sent back to Lisbon, sent now in complete disgrace.
He spends 54 days in a freezing cell in the Porto jail. But while sitting in the dark, he realizes stealing small amounts makes you a criminal. Stealing millions makes you a king.
He sets his sights on the holy grail of theft, the Bank of Portugal itself. But Reins knows that creating counterfeit money is a loser's game. Even the best counterfeiters are eventually caught because fake money always has a physical flaw. The paper weave is wrong. The ink smears under a sweaty thumb. Counterfeiting is a battle of chemistry, and the counterfeiter always loses. Reis wants perfect money. Through his meticulous research while in prison, reading financial statutes and banking laws, he discovers a critical, highly classified vulnerability. The Bank of Portugal does not print its own currency. They outsource it to an incredibly prestigious, highly secure private printing company in London called Waterlow Sons. Waterlow prints currency for empires all over the world. They have the master engraved steel plates. They have the official watermarked paper. If Waterlow prints the money, it isn't counterfeit. It is legally, physically, undeniably real money. Therefore, Reis just needs to convince them to print a batch for him. To do this, he creates a masterpiece of psychological manipulation. He drafts a completely fake, incredibly complex, top-secret contract. The contract claims that the Bank of Portugal has authorized a covert financial operation. The contract states that to inject a massive stimulus into the colony of Angola, the operation must be kept entirely off the public books. It authorizes Alves dos Reis to act as the sole intermediary for a massive print run. But Reis knows a type contract isn't enough. Waterlow won't just accept a letter. He needs it to look undeniably real. He needs the aesthetics of absolute power. So he forges the signatures, down to the millimeter. He forges the signature of the High Commissioner of Angola. Then, he brings the forged document to a corrupt Lisbon notary named Avino de Farda. He bribes the notary to officially notarize the forged signatures. Now, the fake document has a genuine, legally binding state seal. But Reis goes even further. He takes this notarized document to the consulates of Britain, Germany, and France in Lisbon. How does a convicted embezzler get 3 major European empires to sign off on a massive fraud? Because he simply walks into the consulates and asks the clerks to verify the notary's signature. It is a terrifying chain reaction of assumed trust. Each official assumes the previous official in its sole verification. By the time Reis is done, he holds a piece of paper covered in genuine official government seals. It looks like the most important document in the world. But armed with this aesthetic masterpiece, Reis knows he cannot walk into Waterlow Sons himself. If the British printers run a background check, the plan dies. He needs shields, frontmen, men of impeccable reputation and status to present the contract on his behalf. He recruits 3 accomplices, promising them unalterable wealth. In late 1924, Carlo Marang, the aristocratic Dutchman, walks into the towering London route headquarters, bypassing reception of Waterlow Sons.
He demands a private meeting with the managing director, Sir William Waterlow.
Sir William is a serious, meticulous man running a legendary company. He does not suffer fools. When Marang hands him the top-secret contract, Sir William puts on his reading glasses and review it carefully.
合同要沃特罗洛印刷20万张钞票，这相当于葡萄牙整个 GDP 1%。当威廉爵士审阅时，他注意到了一些奇怪的事情。一个巨大的、刺眼的危险信号。
The contract asks Waterlow to print notes using serial numbers that have already been printed. Sir William pauses. Why would a central bank want duplicate serial numbers? That is the literal definition of counterfeit.
Rees had engineered the perfect, brilliant excuse. Marang leans across the desk. He whispers that because this is a covert operation for Angola, the bank wants to use duplicate numbers to hide the massive inflation.
But Marang assures him the new notes will be overprinted with the word Angola, ensuring they never touch the mainland economy. Sir William looks at the seals. He looks at the Dutch merchant. He assumes it must be real. He signs the contract.
In London, the heavy, official printing presses of Waterlow and Sullers roar into action. They pull the exact same master-engraved steel plates they use for the real Bank of Portugal.
They use the exact same high-quality, watermarked linen paper. They mix the exact same proprietary ink. They print millions of perfectly genuine brand-new 500 Escorial notes. They pack the wealth of a nation into secure, unmarked wooden shipping crates.
Rees's accomplices pick up the crates in London. They transport them via train across the English Channel to Paris. To get the money across the Portuguese border without alerting customs, Bandeira uses his diplomatic connections. They register the crates as diplomatic luggage. The border guards wave them right through without opening a single box. The crates arrive in a quiet, unsuspecting room in Lisbon. Rees and his accomplices pry open the wooden lids. They look at the massive, unbelievable stacks of wealth sitting in front of them. They do not overprint the word Angola on them. It is perfect. It is flawless. Because it is real. Alves dos Reis has just successfully printed his own fortune. Over the next year, Reis orders batch after batch from Waterlow. By the end of 1925, he has tricked the hypers printers into creating nearly 100 million Portuguese esculas. That was the equivalent of roughly 1% of the entire country's money supply. Reis is now arguably the richest man in Portugal. But having millions of dollars in physical cash is a massive logistical nightmare. If a 28-year-old with a criminal record suddenly starts buying mansions with crisp, sequential, brand-new 500 Estoril notes, the authorities will immediately arrest him. He needs to launder the money. He needs a machine that can wash millions of dollars simultaneously without raising a single red flag. So, Rees does something absolutely breathtaking. He doesn't buy a casino. He doesn't buy a string of untraceable shell companies. He buys his own bank. Rees uses his immense stolen wealth to legally charter and found a brand new, officially recognized financial institution, the Bank of Angola Chola and Metropole. This is the ultimate, untouchable genius of his plan. As the founder and primary shareholder of a legitimate, government-chartered bank, Rees now has a perfectly legal reason to possess massive walk-in vaults full of cash. He deposits his illicit 500 escarnios directly into his own bank. He mixes them with the legitimate deposits of regular citizens, washing the serial numbers into the system. And then, he uses his bank to invest heavily in the Portuguese economy. He buys prime real estate across the capital. He buys the magnificent Palace of the Golden Boy in Lisbon, outfitting it with priceless art and crystal chandeliers. He buys massive, sprawling tracts of farmland in Angola. He buys fleets of taxis. He buys jewelry, businesses, and most importantly, political fluence. Rees opens the floodgates and releases his money into the Portuguese economy. And something incredibly bizarre happens. Portugal's economy, which had been suffering from terrible, bleeding stagnation, depression, and high unemployment, suddenly booms. Reis's bank is loaning out money at incredibly low interest rates, undercutting all the established conservative banks in the country. Businesses that were bankrupt yesterday are suddenly expanding. Real estate development explodes. Construction sites are everywhere. The massive currency injection acts like a highly illegal but incredibly effective national stimulus package. Alves dos Reis becomes a national hero overnight. He is viewed as a financial genius, a patriotic savior of the colonial economy. He is rubbing shoulders with prime ministers, elite socialists, and powerful military generals. He has everything. He has won the game. He has broken the matrix of reality. But there is a fatal, tearing flaw in his design. A ticking time bomb sitting in the vaults of his bank.
Because Reis didn't print new serial numbers, he printed duplicate serial numbers, which means somewhere in Portugal, there is a legitimate 500 SDL note in the cash register of a bakery. And in the vault of Reis's bank, there is another. It is a mathematical certainty that eventually, as the money circulates at high speed through a booming economy, those two notes will eventually cross paths. And when they do, the illusion will shatter.
To protect himself from this inevitable mathematical collision, Reis realizes he needs to take the final, ultimate step in his master plan. He cannot just own a bank. He has to own the bank. Reis begins using his massive dark liminal squelch to secretly buy up majority shares in the Bank of Portugal itself. His logic is flawless, the ultimate endgame of a criminal mastermind.
If he becomes the controlling shareholder, he will control the board of directors. He will literally own the police investigating his crime. By late 1925, Reis has acquired nearly 10,000 shares. He is agonizingly close. But the established bankers in Lisbon hate him. He is a young, arrogant upshoot, stealing their clients. They tip off a prominent, relentless journalist named Artur Portela at the leading newspaper.
Portada starts investigating Reis's bank. He doesn't know about the forged contract. He doesn't even inspect counterfeiting. He simply looks at the economics. He realizes it is mathematically impossible.
Portela published blistering front-page articles accusing Reis of being a German spy. He claims Reis is laundering foreign money to purposely destabilize the Portuguese economy. The articles causes a massive public uproar. The political pressure mounts. The authorities are forced to act. On December 4, 1925, the Bank of Portugal sends Inspector João Teixeira Wright to Porto to raid a branch of Reis's bank. The inspector seizes massive stacks of the newly printed 500 Estouro notes featuring the face of Vasco da Gama. He lines the notes up on large wooden tables under the harsh light of a brass lamp. He begins the agonizing, tedious process of checking the serial numbers by hand, cross-referencing them line by line with the central bank's master ledger. For hours, he finds absolutely nothing. Every note is perfect. Every note is real. He is exhausted. His eyes burn. The raid looks like a complete failure. The journalist was wrong. But then, the inspector looks at a note on the table. Serial number 17284. He looks at a ledger entry for a note currently sitting in the central bank vault in Lisbon. Serial number 17284. Two identical, perfectly real bankmails, existing in two places at the exact same time. He checks another, and another. The duplicates begin to pile up on the desk and Dunklins like a nightmare.
The Bank of Portugal panics. They realize that their official money supply has been compromised on a scale previously thought mathematically impossible. The blood drains from the faces of the central bankers.
They order an immediate, massive national recall of every single Vasco da Gama 500 Escong note in the entire country. The news hits the streets like a bomb. the public realizes that millions of the bills in their wallets, their life savings, the money they just used to buy their homes, might be completely worthless. Panic erupts in the streets of Lisbon and Porto. Mobs of terrified, furious citizens swarm the banks, violently demanding to exchange their 500 espolo notes for gold or smaller, safe denominations. Fights break out. Windows are smashed. The banks run out of physical cash within hours. The Portuguese economy goes into immediate, violent cardiac arrest. On December 5, 1925, the police kicked down the heavy wooden doors of Alves dos Reis' luxury estate. They drag him out in handcuffs. The architect of the greatest financial illusion in history has finally been caught. When the trial begins, the sheer, staggering scale of the fraud is revealed to the world. Sir William Waterlow in London is utterly humiliated. Waterlow Sons is sued by the Bank of Portugal for gross negligence. The prestigious company is forced to pay crippling damages. But the true, lasting devastation happens in Portugal. The scandal completely shatters the public's faith in the democratic government. The public is furious at the incompetent politicians who let a 28-year-old kid steal the country. Just a few months after Reis's arrest, the Portuguese military uses the economic chaos and public outreach as a justification to launch a violent coup d'etat. They overthrow the democratic First Republic, silencing dissent with secret police and suppressing democracy for the next 40 years. An entire country plunged into 4 decades of darkness. All because a 28-year-old high school dropout decided to forge a signature on a piece of paper. And people were too lazy to check the wax seal. Alves dos Reis was sentenced glowing stars to 20 years in prison. While incarcerated, he didn't behave like a defeated man. He behaved like a man who understood that reality is just a matter of perception. Even from inside his highly secure cell, he managed to forge official documents and briefly convinced a judge to release him. Though the plot was discovered just hours before he could walk out the front door. When he was finally released in 1945, the world had changed. Portugal was locked in a brutal dictatorship. The booming, roaring 1920s economy he had briefly, illegally stimulated was a distant, painful memory. He died in 1955, relatively poor, largely forgotten by the public. But the legacy of Rodrigo Alves dos Reis remains one of the most terrifying warnings in the history of global finance and human psychology. He proved that the systems that govern our lives, our massive banks, our global economies, our impenetrable governments, are not secured by thick steel vaults, armed tactical guards, or complex mathematics. They are secured by a fragile, invisible, incredibly vulnerable web of human trust. We trust the watermark. We trust the red wax seal. We trust the tailored suit. We trust the piece of paper because it looks like it belongs there. And as Alves dos Reis proved, if you can forge the trust,
You can steal the world.